Hi, my name is Paige. Welcome to my channel. So in September, I read 10 books. I had originally planned to read 17 books, but I only read 8 of them. So this month I was trying to participate in Becca's Bookoplathon. I was also trying to participate in Alice's Adventure Through Wonderland Readathon, and I was trying to participate in the Page Turner Book Club and just my regular TBR for the month. It didn't quite go as planned, but I felt like I had a pretty good reading month. So for my stats, I read 6 books physically, and then I read 4 books as a mix between audiobook and reading it physically. I had 1 3-star read, 4 4-star reads, and 4 5-star reads. For the nonfiction I read this month, I ended up not rating that one at all, but I read a total of 3,274 pages this month. For the genres, I read 3 fantasy, 2 contemporary, 1 nonfiction, 1 historical fiction, 1 literary fiction, and 2 romance. For my age groups, I read 5 adult, 1 young adult, and 4 middle grade. So looking at my personal September TBR, I only ended up reading these 3 books. And of my 6 books for Becca's Bookoplathon, I only ended up reading 2 of them. And for the 5 books that I plan to read for Alice's Adventure Through Wonderland Readathon, I read 4 of them. Alright, let's get started with my ranking and recommending. Every single month I've been trying to rank the books in order of how I would recommend them, mostly to my family and my friends, but just in general how I think people would feel about reading all of these books. So here we go. First up, I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and I ended up really liking this one. I marked this as a 5-star on Goodreads, but I think it's more of a 4.5 star. I just really had a fun time reading it. I thought that they had really good communication. I thought that Reid was just a really great male love interest. I thought that the story was very funny, but I did feel like I was a little annoyed with the conflict that happened. I thought that Reid overreacted quite a bit at the end, and it was just a little bit like, did we really have to overreact? We were doing so great the entire time. But I really enjoyed reading this. This is about Chloe, who has like a semi-near-death experience at the beginning of the book, and she realizes that she has never really had a life. So she makes a short little list of things that she wants to do to get a life, and she has her landlord Reid help her out with some of these things, and it just ends up being a really cute story. I had a really fun time. I would highly recommend this one. So right now I'm going to rank it number 1. Then I was feeling kind of in a mood. I pulled this off my shelf. It's Go Deep by Rilzy. I've been hearing lots of great things about it, and I agree. It's a really fun story. It's really short, under 200 pages, and it's about a writer named Nevaeh who writes very steamy stories. And on one of the comments of her stories that she has just published, they said that the steamy parts are very boring, so she wants to get back in the groove of writing these stories. So she asks her best friend to hook up with her so that she can get more inspiration for her stories. So I really enjoyed the friendship in this one. I really liked their dynamic. I liked the way they joked with each other. I liked how much they cared about each other. And Nevaeh and Xander in this story together are just really, really great. The other parts of the story are just not very fleshed out. Every time Nevaeh would speak to her friends, or there would be a scene with them not doing steamy things, it just was a little boring, and I felt like the author had the whole story in their mind, but they didn't portray it all the way for us to connect to anyone besides the main 2. But it was a fun time. It's not the greatest thing I've ever read, but I did enjoy reading it. I would probably continue on with the series, so I'll recommend this number 2 right now. So then I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and I ended up really liking this one. I gave it 4 stars because it was a little clunky at some parts. The dialogue was a little strange. Some of the reveals just felt a little unnatural, but I think that might have just been a translation issue. But the overall story was really interesting. It's about a coffee shop that there is a seat that you can travel through time while you sit there drinking some coffee. And there are 4 different stories in this one, and each person has a different reason for why they want to travel through time, and some of them just are heartbreaking. Every single one of them is just very moving, and you understand why they would make these choices to travel in time despite all of the rules this coffee shop has and all the limitations of the time travel. But I thought it was really fun. I really did like reading this one, and then I just heard that there is a second book, so I will probably read that one soon. So I'm going to rank this number 2 right now. Next up, I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, and I was really, really, really anticipating reading this one, and I ended up only giving it 3 stars. I can't say that it's a bad book. I do recommend this one if you are looking for something written very beautifully, has a lot of magic in it, but what I struggled with was that this is a middle grade, but it does not just follow the child's point of view. So you don't see everything from her eyes. You don't see her discovering the world. You see the adult's point of views a lot more than you see Luna. So I felt very disconnected to the story because of that. I wish that I could have been in her point of view the entire way, and sometimes had the adults' point of views, but it wasn't poorly written. I think some people will appreciate this. I know lots of people really do love this book, but having the adults' point of view made the book feel very dreary and just boring at some points, and I just didn't care. I wanted to feel magical and whimsical, and it was just kind of sad having to listen to all of these adults and all of their problems. So this one is about a town that sacrifices a baby every single year to this swampland, where they believe that a witch needs to take a baby for sacrifice. But on the flip side, this witch keeps finding babies every single year in the swamp, and she takes them to a neighboring city so that they can be adopted. And on their journey to the city, she always feeds the baby Starlight. But one year she gets very distracted and ends up feeding a baby Moonlight, which ends up giving her magical powers. And it's a really fun journey. I did think that this was a very cute story. I sobbed towards the end because there are some just things that really always get to me in middle grade books, and I thought that this little bitty tiny dragon is the cutest side character ever, but I was just expecting it to go differently. I expected more of the child's point of view than adult point of views, but I think people will like this, so I am going to rank this number 3 right now. So then I finally finished The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I have been trying to read this since July. It's just been taking me a very long time to get through it. I was talking to my cousin, and she said that it's written like a textbook, so it's not the easiest book to read, and I definitely agree with that. As somebody who doesn't read nonfiction very much, I did have to take my time getting through. I listened along to the audiobook so that I could understand it just a little bit better, and I learned a lot. It was really hard to hear some of the things that I have just never known. I've been privileged enough to not have to worry about those things, and it taught me a whole lot about our system, our prison system, just the way that things are set up, and how history has just made things so difficult for the Black community, and how prisons aren't set up in America to help people succeed afterwards. And just, it's not something that I think people can just sit down and just read in one go. I feel like you need to take your time with this one, but I feel like it's very, very important if you live in the States to be aware of what is going on so that we can all start making the changes that need to happen. So I ended up not rating this one because I didn't really know how to rate something that's just so vital for us to read. It wasn't an enjoyable read, it wasn't an easy read, but it's an important read. It's something that we all need to know and have an understanding of so that we can start making changes. So I didn't rate this one. This is going to be in its own category of just read it. If you live in the States, read it. If you don't live in the States and want to know more about what's going on, read it. Then I read The Extremely Inconvenient Adventures of Bronte and Mettlestone by Jaclyn Moriarty, and I love this so much. I rated this 5 stars. This was the middle grade that I have just been wanting to read. It was so much fun. The audiobook is amazing. The narrator of it does all of the voices, and she just sounds so good. It's so interesting. I loved it so much. So it's about this girl who has never really known her parents. She's been raised by her aunt, and one day they find out that her parents were murdered by pirates. So then in their will, they send her on this magic-bound journey to go drop a gift off to all of her 11 or 12 aunts. And I just thought it was so sweet. She was 10 years old and she's on this journey, and she's feeling all the feelings of a 10-year-old who doesn't really know her parents. She's angry with them, she's sad at some points, she misses her aunt, she goes on lots of adventures. There's an avalanche, there's dragons, there's elves, there's just so much fun middle grade stuff in this. So I definitely recommend this if you have kids or if you just love reading middle grade as well. So I am going to rank this number 2 right now because I loved it so much. It was so much fun. So then I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Talia Jenkins Reid for the late night book club, and I love this book so much. I don't even know how to explain how much I love this one. This is about a woman named Monique who gets a once-in-a-lifetime chance to interview this woman named Evelyn Hugo, who was this major Hollywood star in like the 60s, and just all throughout her life she has just been this gorgeous bombshell starlet. and Monique gets to interview her, but when she gets to the interview, she finds out that Evelyn actually wants to write her story, and she wants Monique to be the person to write her biography. And in Evelyn's life, she has had 7 husbands, and so she tells the story of all 7 of her husbands, and there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of frustrating moments, and Evelyn is awful at some points, and the husbands that she has had are awful at some points, and some are amazing, and you just are so intrigued by what's going on and who she married and why she did that and why she made certain choices that she did, that you just keep on reading. It's just so captivating. I really enjoyed this one so much. I sobbed so hard throughout the ending of this book. I want to say the last third of this book, I was a wreck. It was so emotional. It just had so many moments that you just feel gutted for what happened in Evelyn's life, and oh my gosh, I could not recommend this one more. I absolutely am going to tell all of my family to read this one, so I am going to rank this number 1 right now because this was so good. The hype was real. People were not wrong when they said that this one is so good. Then for the page turner book club, I read Loveless by Alice Oseman, and it was really sweet. I really enjoyed this one. So this follows Georgia in her first year of university, and she is trying to have the college experience. She is trying to figure out her sexuality, figure out why she doesn't feel the same way about relationships like other people do in her life, and she really wants to have a relationship, and things are just not working out the way that she wants them to. And she starts to come to terms with what it might mean to be asexual or aromantic, and there's a lot of learning throughout this story and learning about different sexualities and how different people experience things differently, and I enjoyed that part of it. I cannot say if this is great representation. I've seen some reviews that say this is not very good representation. I've seen some reviews saying that this is exactly how they have felt and how they experienced their story. I do think a lot of people will like reading this one, so I'm going to rank this number 4 right now. Then I read The House of Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, and I give this 4 stars. I really did like the story, but I feel like there are parts of it that people just won't like in general just because of the choices of the main character. So this follows Marinka, who is the granddaughter of Baba Yaga, and she is so tired of her house always moving around and not being able to set down roots and make friends. So she ends up making some very selfish choices, and it leads to very big consequences. And one of these consequences is that her grandmother disappears, and Marinka has to try and get her back. So I ended up really liking Marinka. I understood where she was coming from a lot of the time. Even as a grown-up, I kind of was able to step back and go, oh, I get why she's making that. I probably would have made that same choice at 12 years old. So I did really enjoy her. I loved her animal companions. I loved that the house was very sentient, and I loved how it explored the afterlife and death. But I do think that a lot of people will not like how selfish Marinka is, and she doesn't always learn from the bad choices that she makes. And the ending of the book is something I didn't super expect, and there are some twists in here that I also didn't expect. So I can't say that this book would be for everyone, but I did really enjoy it. So because of its length and how easy it is to read compared to The Girl Who Drank the Moon, I am going to rank this above The Girl Who Drank the Moon, but I do think that this one will irritate some people if they don't like naive and a little bit selfish child characters. And finally, I read Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake, and I gave this 5 stars. I absolutely love this. So this story just has a whole lot. I feel like I can't explain everything that goes into it, but basically at the beginning of the story, Ivy's house has been completely destroyed by a tornado, and after the tornado, she is just dealing with a lot, her and her family both. She's feeling a little bit neglected from her family. She's also coming to terms with her sexuality. She's meeting a new friend and learning how to be friends with them and maybe having feelings for this friend, and she's having a falling out with her sister a little bit. So there's just a lot going on in her life, and I felt like I handled all of these situations really well. I felt all of her emotions. I just felt for her, and I just wanted to give her a big hug at the end of the story. It was just so sweet, and I feel like this is a story that I wish I had when I was younger, so I would definitely highly recommend this one. If you have kids, they should read this one. If you enjoy middle grade, you should read this one. And just in general, I feel like this is just a well-written story, and I feel like people could just get a lot from this one. So I am going to rank this number 2. Alright, so this is my ranking for September. I honestly feel like I had one of the best reading months ever. I definitely recommend every single one of these books. So if you are interested in any of them, I would say go for it. Let me know if you have read any of them and what you have thought about them so that we can chat. I would love to know what you have read and what you are interested in reading. If you have not already seen my October TBR, I will link it right here. I made it supernatural themed because that is my favorite show in the entire world, and I am so excited for all of the books that I'm going to read in October. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to see my eventual October wrap-up. Please like this video to help me out, and if you want to add me on Twitter and Instagram to chat about your reads through October, I would love that so much. Alright, I will see you all later. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.